Welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm your host today, Bill Hirschman. I'm editor and chief critic of Florida Theater on Stage. And I'm here with our, I want to say usual panel, but we have some surprises for you. We'll start with our founder, the experienced actress, producer, leader, dancer, and the founder of this wonderful organization, Iris Acker. Next to her is Dan Clancy, famed playwright and winner of numerous awards that he will be happy to tell you about. And next to me is Michelle Solomon. Michelle is the editor of Miami Art Scene and a critic for Florida Theater on Stage. But the person that we're most interested in today is our special guest, and we are so glad to have him, Kevin Johnson, president of Conundrum Stages. Kevin, you're one of the best kept secrets in Florida theater. Many people know you, but many other people have never heard of Conundrum Stages. Can you tell us a little bit about what Conundrum Stages does? For one thing, you've been around, 16 years, is that right?
Actually, it's been 9.
Only
just
9.
nine.
Sorry.
Just 9.
It feels like 16.
Yeah. But first off, I want to thank you and thank Iris and everyone here for the opportunity in order to talk about Conundrum Stages and the things that we do. So, in a nutshell, we produce talent shows. We do a variety of different performances. We recruit many different performers in many different genres, whether it be theater, music, comedy, poetry, dance, anything that has to deal with performers in order to give them opportunities, give them a showcase, give them a platform in order to show local audiences their skill sets in entertainment, in their artistry.
And it's local talent as well.
Yes.
You do focus on
Simply local talent. And that could range, it's a Southeast Florida region, so it can range from Palm Beach all the way down to Miami-Dade.
Can you give us some examples of the kinds of performances, the kinds of talents that you have spotlighted over the years specifically?
Well, we started out doing Readers Theater, as some of you may know. It spiraled out of a Readers Theater project that we called the Ghost Light series, and that started back in 2004, which hasn't been 16 years yet. Still trying to handle the math. But we started back then as the Ghost Light series, where we would recruit local actors to do classic
Very
and contemporary plays. And we would, of course, read from a script with dramatization.
Very good.
Dramatization.
articulation.
One more time. Dramatization.
We'll say it with you.
All together now.
So we would do that, and we would do that at community centers, libraries, places like that. And then from there, in 2008, is where we spiraled out and expanded to do other performances, like comedy shows or poetry nights, musician nights, focusing mostly on soloists as opposed to bands. Not that we have anything against bands. It's just that we focus mostly on the solo art.
It's more like I've worked with you when I did stand-up comedy.
Yes.
And you had Funny Business, which was a collective of comics. I performed at, I think, a club it was. So where do you have these shows performed? Where do people actually go when you do your, I call it a collective.
Right. Full disclosure, Michelle and I, she performed stand-up at a place that I was hosting. Separate from Conundrum Stages, I was hired as a host for this place called the Starlight Lounge, which is in Pompano Beach.
Yes.
They started a monthly stand-up comedy show there. So I was the host, and I recruited Michelle as one of the comics to perform there. But as far as when we did our Funny Business show, we wanted to encompass all different types of comedy, not just stand-up, but we reached out to improv groups. We brought in vignettes, like small one-act plays, 10-minute plays, and then we add in musical guests in between. So it was more like a vaudevillian format.
Oh, I like that, vaudeville.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you like
You brought vaudeville back.
Yes.
I want to, first of all, I've been reading about your company. I really want to congratulate you on the contributions that you've made to the South Florida arts.
Greatly
And-
appreciated.
Good, thank you. And the question is, it is so difficult to start a theater company or a dance company. You know, what made you do it?
Well, I like to call Conundrum Stages a performance company because we encompass all different types of performance and all different acts. So one night is never the same. We'll do, and the reason why I started it is because I wanted to provide opportunities for our local talent.
What about yourself? Is it an opportunity for you as well?
It's an opportunity for the company in order to get out and just let people know that we have this market full of artists and entertainers who live here so that we can prove to local audiences that there is great talent here in their backyard. You have all these theater companies and the dance companies and these choruses that have these followings and have these audiences that come in, but also just to let people know about these solo acts that you can find at other places besides big performance spaces where we can go to lounges or restaurants or small clubs and let people know that there are, the little things. Like, we want to respect the little things as well. So that's what I wanted to
One
bring
thing I'm
out.
curious about, besides acting as the chief administrator and president, do you perform? Do you perform yourself, or do you direct, or
What
else
do
you
is I reach out to people who have a lot more knowledge than I do in the formats that I want to bring out. So I'm more like a curator, per se.
that's wonderful.
Or
That's
just once again, I always look at it as being an artist myself. I'm providing the canvas, and then other people are actually putting their work on this canvas.
Which, before we go too much further, do you have a website in the sense that if people want to contact you and go, I'd be interested in this, where can they reach you?
Our website is www.conundrumstages.net, and I'll break it down for you. Co as in co-pilot, nun as in Sister Mary, and drum as in percussion.
Awesome.
So just for those people
we
who
wanted
don't
to
know.
Now we know where
Yeah.
the name came from.
Exactly.
Is that how the company name came up? And
Well,
where's the company name from?
Well,
It's an interesting name.
yes,
It is.
yes. First off, I've always liked the name Conundrum, even though I didn't necessarily know what it actually meant, but just the rolling of the tongue, Conundrum. And then Stages, once again, we wanted to provide platforms for all different performers, as opposed to
Do I
one
have to
specific.
audition if I want to perform for you?
Yes. Yes. Most of our auditions, most of our castings, I want to say, is video, whereas we don't necessarily do like on-site auditions. I find people through.
Did you ask me to send in a video when I go to Conundrum, your website?
You can.
Oh, okay.
You can. If you have a portfolio online of your work, you can send that to our website, or we also have our email address, which is conundrumstages@ymail.com. You could send it there as well. I've taken that most people, have their online presence. They have a website. They have their content on YouTube and Instagram and a social media. So
So are you just providing a venue for people, or
Yes.
do people get paid as performers? Do they get
Well, we started because we just wanted audiences not to have such a roadblock in order to come see our shows. Most of our shows are free admittance. Now that we're trying to venture more into performance spaces, more into small theaters, where, of course, we have to pay a rental, but we also need that return. So we will do an admission charged performance. And now out of that admission charge performance, we want to give a little something to that performer that is going to be joining us.
Where do you get your audience from? I wouldn't know. I don't see advertising. I mean, I know if Michelle was performing, she would call everybody she knows and tell them.
And
is that
exactly.
where your
Everyone I
audience
know.
comes from
And
the
that's what
performers?
we really boil down to is word of mouth. We encourage the talent in order to let people know that they are performing so that they can come out and see them. Because if you don't know, if they don't know that you're performing, how are they going to come and see you? How are they going to come and support you? But we do advertising, we have an email list, we have our website, we also post on Facebook, and we also send out press releases as well. And then I have to call them to let them know that, hey, do you have my press release?
When you're planning a program, is it based on the artist? Do you look around and say, for example, wow, we have some great poets right now,
Yes.
and they need to be heard? Or is it based on the community and saying, what program can we do that's going to meet the needs of the community? So what comes first, the artist or the community?
I've always put the artist first because with the artist, we want to, first off, give them, once again, the platform in order to showcase their work. And then I will go out into the community and I will let them know that this is what is going on. But we also rely on that artist in order to let people know as well. So I kind of figure it's more like a 401k where the employer has to match the contribution to the employee. If the employee doesn't match the contribution, then it's never a collaboration. Everything works in collaboration and community. So.
Well,
Sounds good.
money is an interesting thing to ask about then. If up until now most of your admission has been free and most of your talent is working for little or nothing, how do you pay for a venue? What are the
Out of the very
how do the
goodness of my
finances
heart.
work this? Is that it?
And out of the very, if we have, honestly, it's wherever we have or find time and space. We don't do this monthly. We don't do this every other month. It's wherever there is time and space in order to put on an event.
So it's like a happening.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it's pop-up
But of course, we
performance.
give people time in advance in order to let people know. But it is.
And you have a list of upcoming events on your website.
Yes.
I know that.
Yes. To celebrate our 9th anniversary. I'm loving the math. This is good. I'm loving the math. To celebrate our 9th anniversary, this is something that we've done a few years ago, where we went from venues from Palm Beach all the way down to Miami, and we put together a tour. So 3 years ago, we did what we called an open mic tour, where we booked the talent in advance. We went to that venue. So in the beginning of the month, we're in Palm Beach. By the end of the month, we're in Miami. So this next time, we're going to go back out on tour, and we're going to do the same thing again. The only difference is that we're doing site-specific events. So one night, we'll have a poetry night. Another night somewhere else, we'll do an all-female acoustic show. Another night from there, we're going to do a comedy show, and so on and so forth by the end of the,
Wow.
yeah.
It sounds very ambitious.
What kind of audiences do you draw? It sounds like you do. I mean, I just know from following you, it seems like you reach out to a demographic that is younger, which, in our world, all of our worlds, we're always trying to get that younger demo because they're going to be the future of going to arts events. I mean,
We're trying to reach out to everybody that we possibly can, whether there be 16 to 92 who just loves performances and loves local performances. Who knows that for the affordable price of $15, you can see a person who is just as good as if they were performing at the BB&T Center.
I think what you need is someone who has made it. You know what I mean? And that started with you. Wouldn't that be great? And you could say, well, so-and-so performed with Conundrum, you know, thing. And do you have anybody like that yet?
Actually, funny thing is that we had one person who worked with us about a few years ago and has worked with us multiple times and has now performed on The Voice. They were a semi-finalist on The Voice. His name is Johnny Rez. So he did that, and now he's back here. He's still working for a living, but he's also still working on his music. You know, you could see his information online. He's already posted videos on YouTube. So yes, we could say that that person,
Johnny
who
Rez
worked-
started
Johnny
Rez
Rez.
from The Voice.
Johnny
Yes.
Rez started here.
Yes.
Tell us about what's your background? I mean, I find that it's so interesting that you're you want to be this gatherer and this producer and
Ziegfeld.
you're the modern Ziegfeld, right?
I started in theater, of course, from middle school to high school, and then I also did theater in college. I had an internship at a professional theater company that was here, and then I did shows in the community, but something about wanting to learn how it is to create a show as opposed to being in a show, and that type of thing drawed me more. And now I find myself just always willing to help guide that talent in order to springboard them to whatever next level that they want to be in, so that they can, go out and be a talent and create a living wage.
So it's a lot of giving exposure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are there any art forms you haven't explored yet that you would like your company to do?
I would like to do a lot more with dance. We've dabbled in dance a few times, but it depends on the platform when it's conducive to dance. I mean, restaurants are great, but they're not dance floors. I mean, we need like a stage that is, once again, conducive to that environment. We've had a couple of dance troupes come in and perform for us, but to actually have a dance show and to give dancers and choreographers the platform that they need in order to showcase their skill sets, it's something where it's going to take a lot more work because we're dealing with bodies, we're dealing with physicalities.
In space.
And space. And space. So that is one of the main focuses, hopefully somewhere down the line, that we would like to do a full-on dance show.
Yeah. What's the advantages and disadvantages of not having a permanent home?
Well, the advantages are that, once again, as opposed to working in a food and beverage establishment, the advantages of having a performance space is that they're mostly focused on the performer. With all due respect to a food and beverage establishment, even though it does have a stage, it can be social hour, and the entertainment is usually in the background. As this particular company, as we are giving opportunities and wanting to showcase talent, we don't want them to be in the background. We want the audience focused on that performer. So that's one of the advantages of being in a performance space. The disadvantage of trying to find performance spaces is that everyone else is trying to find a performance space. And so we have to compete for time. We've performed at places where they have resident companies, and then we have to work around their schedules.
But isn't there also an issue? I think of M Ensemble, which has recently finally found a permanent home. But in the last 4 or 5 years, they've moved from place to place to place to place. And even their fans and their supporters didn't know where to find them.
Right.
I mean, it's not a joke. I mean, it's funny, but it's not a joke in the sense. So an organization like yours, how do you counter this concept where the performance space may change from season to season, the schedule may change a great deal from season to season? How do you cope with that?
Well, Conundrum Stages is an artist-driven company. I find a hall, I can advertise till I'm promote till I'm blue in the face, but it's also up to the talent itself in order to get the word out.
Okay.
Because once again, if there's nothing to be said, how are people going to know? And we rely on those artists in order to, get a following, and for them to create a following, so that they can build a brand, so that the next time that they're in an area, they can shout from the megahorns, listen, I'm here, I'm doing this show here at such and such a place. So,
But a lot of theaters like their Monday nights to be filled. And the thing is why? Because if you bring an audience in to see Michelle, for example, that audience may then come and see their theater, see their shows. So they're looking for audiences to create new audience, and that might be a thought for you, is to find a theater that has a Monday night, for example, that will give you, and you can have ongoing, and maybe only once a month if you can't, the same talent perform every Monday for a month or something. Just a thought.
Yeah, well,
Just a
we're
thought.
working on that, but also, once again, with spaces that also have resident companies, even though one space or one company is done with their show for the weekend, that other company is in rehearsal on that Monday night.
Right.
So we also have to look into that. One of the things that we're working on, going back to admission-based or revenue-based performances, is that we're working on a series that we're going to be doing a double bill, where we have 2 performers doing 45-minute sets each. And we're going to be doing a admission charge where the artist or the performer gets a base of that revenue. But in order for them to get that base is that they have to promote in order to get paid. But we're going to be, that's one of the things that we're going to be working on in order to give something back to that performer, especially the performers who've been working with us on multiple projects for the past 9 years, as a way of saying, we appreciate your loyalty to us.
The one thing that civilians probably don't understand is that most of the people that you're talking about definitely have day jobs, and I'm wondering if you can describe to them a little bit who these people are. Are they? No, I mean, what kind of life are these people doing? Is this a hobby for them?
They are your next door neighbor. They are your dog walker. They are your employee. They are your brother, your sister, your niece, your nephew, your aunt. They are people who live in the neighborhood who have an aspiration in order to become a performer. And if you support that aspiration, we want you to come and see your friends on stage and be able to give that.
Well, is it as much is this as much just finding a way to express yourself artistically, or do some of these people want this to be a career at some point?
It's both.
Okay.
Honestly, it's both. Some people have this as an avocation. We have also reached out to people who do this full time, that are able to spare a few hours out of their time in order to come and volunteer for us. We've also have been rejected by people who say that they don't do this for free. And that's fine, but we do believe that there is a huge pool out there that wants this opportunity. And those are the people that we work with time and time again in order to, once again, build their brand or their repertoire per se.
So we always ask this kind of, I always call it the beauty shot question, right?
Yes.
Which is, where do you see Conundrum in, just I'll throw out a 5 years. Where do you see Conundrum in 5 years? Like, where's it grown? Where's it become? Does it have a space?
To be honest with you, I always look at it day by day as opposed to a future projection. I would love to get more support from municipalities that have their own performing arts program. We did a show 3 years ago where we got a commission from a municipality that had their own arts and leisure. We performed a variety show in their civic center, and we'd like to use that to take it to other municipalities who have civic centers, performing spaces that are able to give a commission, and then once again we would be able to pay out a little stipend to each of those performers, just as a way of, once again, saying thank you for their support.
And speaking
Kevin,
of thank you, it's time.
what upcoming events are you really looking forward to?
Well, once again, I'm looking forward to the double bill that we're trying to put together. And then also, once again, we're going out on tour, so we're going to different places from Palm Beach down to Miami. So
now we'll try to say thank you again. We want to thank our special guest, Kevin Johnson, for making us aware of the 9 years of history. We want to thank Dan Clancy for trying to sit in for the irreplaceable Michael McKeever, and Michelle for sitting in for the irreplaceable Karen Stevens. But most of all, we want to thank you for coming and listening to us for another week. And join us next week if you have any interest in what else is going on in theater in this region. Check floridatheateronstage.com, and we will see you next week on Spotlight on the Arts.